All right, hey guys. So our company was Revolve Co. And so for question one, our starting strategy, what did we decide to do and why? So the first thing we decided to do was only have two bikes put out into the market. So first we covered the speed segment and second was the recreational segment. Why we decided to do that was because we didn't want to spread ourselves too thin. We were worried that if we did three bikes at least starting, we'd be using too much money, and that we would just spread ourselves too thin, and we didn't want to run into that issue. And so and then how do we divide up the work?
Um, we had to assign our roles at the beginning. He was the president and in charge of accounting and finance. I was marketing and sales finance or sales management. But we worked together on each little section. So we all both of us kind of knew what was going on, and we didn't assign specific parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we decided that if we go together through each and every single item, that by the end we would still be able to know what has happened, every single decision we've decided to make. And so in case one of us, let's say, was gone, we wouldn't be in the dark on what was happening.
Okay, I think our biggest strategy was more of just like trial and error. We would just kind of try things through each quarter and see how it worked out. And if it worked out great, we kind of continued with that. If it didn't work out great, we tweaked it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and some of the decisions that we held throughout the entire simulation was number one, we tried to focus on having quality as well as also having good customer value. Another thing was having stable pricing. Now, we weren't the lowest in the simulation, but we also weren't trying to be the highest, but at least try and just stay competitive with the pricing throughout the entire game, as well as also having the consistent investment in the marketing campaign. And then also just between us having good teamwork. I think that was the biggest thing, is if we could work together as a team, we could try and succeed. And we started seeing that from the first quarter all the way on until Q7. You noticed that everything started to improve, which was a great thing to see.
The next question was about how we looked at the other teams' movements and how that affected our movements. I think the biggest thing that I based off of the other teams' movements was our ads. The first ads that we made were not successful at all. I think we had the lowest ratings on them. So I kind of looked at what the other teams did and kind of made a strategy based off of how many items they put on each ad, where they were placed, and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we still looked at what other teams were doing, but also at the same time, we also looked at what worked for us every single quarter going to the next and what didn't. If we had issues someplace, we would say, all right, let's actually tackle this. We'd kind of look and see what other teams were doing, but we also decided at times not to worry about them because we were doing something right at times. And so as long as we can keep that going, we should be successful. All right, so question 4 was there a critical decision or crossroads of any type? And so one of the things that from the get-go after the first quarter was decided on if we wanted to create a new bike or not. And after talking to Aaron, he told us, hey, maybe you guys don't do a third bike. And so we'd kind of had conversation back and forth, and she can tell you what she thought on it.
We were successful. We chose speed and recreational bikes, and we were doing really good. And so I was convinced that we shouldn't make a bike in the mountain segment. I thought that we would be solid just kind of sticking with the two that we already had. Mm. And he wanted to make one for the mountain segment. So
yeah, I still agreed with her on it, but then as we kind of kept going on in the simulation, I just decided, hey, I think we need to try and tackle this new market. But this was farther along, and I think too she was on board with it, that we'd built up the company well enough that if we did create a new bike, that it wasn't that much risk, and or at least the risk could only be good for us, that the outcome, if the bike is successful, if it's not, then oh well. And so we decided to come together and create a mountain bike.
The next question was, what type of things did we learn right away and what things took a little bit longer for us to learn? I think the first thing that we learned right away was the ads. I think that was probably one of the important ones because, again, we were kind of lacking in that area. And once we fixed it, it really improved our overall sales.
Well, and another thing too that we learned was the difference between fixed capacity and operating capacity. So right as the simulation started, we weren't really sure, and we just thought, hey, we'll just throw a random number out there on what our operating capacity is because we decided to purchase 2 printers. And then we learned pretty fast that our demand wasn't there, and so our operating capacity didn't need to be as high. And so then we learned to at least structure it back and kind of get better at least at that. But then in the end, I'll take the blame for this one. I didn't change the fixed capacity, or at least increase the printers, and so by the last quarter, we actually had more demand, and so it was higher than our operating capacity, and so we ran into that issue. So that was fun. All right, so for question 6, it was name a decision that you made that you were completely sure of and that you didn't give second thought. That one I'm not really sure if we had anything specific like that. I felt like for the most part we were a little bit worried or a little bit hesitant just because we wanted to be successful in the simulation. But the second part of the question was, what was one that you made that took some time or you may have been worried about? And really fast, it was one of them was at least creating that mountain bike. That one we kind of were hesitant on. That took some time. And
I think the other one, we made a bike that was like a comfort-based speed bike, and like the customers weren't necessarily focused on the comfort aspect of a speed bike, and that kind of screwed us over just a tad bit. Nothing crazy, but it just wasn't our successful bike. The next question was like things that we're like most proud of, and at the end we earned the trophy of being like the highest performing company in the industry. So I think that was probably like our biggest one.
Yeah, well, and yeah, with that we also had the highest cumulative balance scorecard, which we feel like is a pretty good feat in and of itself. Also, our sales, we had more than 1 million in sales. That's another big thing. And that we are the money trophy we got, which our company had made at least 1 million in profit. And then also that one of our brands had the highest brand judgment in the industry. And so we felt like at the end of it all, we felt like we put enough time and effort in, and to get these accomplishments, it felt really good. It felt like to see that at the end was, just a good thing. All right, so for the next question, what are some of the most important takeaways? And the first one that comes to mind for me is actual time spent in the simulation. We learned pretty fast that without being in the simulation, you don't really know a whole lot. And so being able to go in depth in the simulation, it helped us progress and become a successful company as we moved forward. And I felt like overall it just gave us comfortability in the simulation.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that just made it even better was us actually like working together and like taking time for both of us to work on the same things and come to agreements. I think that was definitely like beneficial because we could get both opinions and both perspectives and see which like kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah, well, and being able to work not just in class really helped, but also working outside of class, whether that was, hey, we got 30 minutes today, let's just call and just break it down and get a couple things knocked out was awesome. All right, so for the last question, what will we have done differently, if anything? I think what I would do is just make sure that we were more prepared in the end about fixed capacity, just so we can have a higher operating capacity.
Yeah, I agree. I think that probably would have skyrocketed us at the end, but
yeah, and I felt like overall, though, there wasn't anything else we would have changed just because it was a good learning experience week by week.